Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make this panorama card. It's using one of the designer series paper that have the design that go all the way across, and I've literally just chopped it up. I made something similar last Christmas where the pattern has to follow and each layer has to get a little bit smaller. This was the one that pulls out. I did 2 of those. I'll actually put the link to those in the bottom if you want to go and have a look at them. But the concept being that the pattern follows all the way through. You can't just chop bits off the bottom. There are quite a few 8s in this, but I will put those in the description box below as well. So what we need to make this card is some crumb cake, and it's cut at the usual 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4, and then it folds in half and makes the standard card base size that fits into a regular envelope. There is a piece of Night of Navy which is cut not the 1/4 inch down, it's actually cut at 5 3/8 by 4 1/8, so it more or less fills the inside, you know, the front of the card. If you are going to be using a dark cardstock, I would also recommend that you cut the same size and put it on the inside. But of course, crumb cake is light enough to carry your greeting. It needs a piece of basic white, and this is cut to 4 inches. You actually need 4 3/4, but I just kept it the whole 5 1/2. And then you need a piece of designer series paper that has the pattern going across, and it's usually cut from either the top or the bottom, and that needs to be cut at 3 7/8. Like I say, there's a lot of 8s, but they all flow together. And then there's just a piece which is a 1/2 inch of the crumb cake, which I needed for the greeting. And as I was making some layers, I had this piece spare, so I just brought it on over. So let me cut down the white and the designer series paper with you so you get a feel for how that goes. So the first 2 pieces we need are going to be, well, the white doesn't really matter because it doesn't have a pattern. The big piece in the middle is actually 1 1/4, and that is by 4. So we need 1 of those. And then we need the 2 next, let me bring the card in, see if I can. The next 2 pieces, they're 1 inch, but they're only 3 1/2 inches tall. So let me cut 1 inch and 1 inch, and then we can put them together and cut them down to 3 1/2. So we'll line them both up at the 3 1/2 inch mark and slice a little piece off. And don't laugh, we're going to use this piece, so I'm going to hang on to that carefully. And then the 2 outside pieces, these 2 pieces are 3/4 of an inch wide, and they're 3 inches tall. So we'll do the 3/4 of an inch twice. This is the little piece of scrap that I said it was bigger than we needed. Whoop. I'm giving away the piece I need, I think. 3/4 of an inch, and we're going to cut it down to 3 inches. Let me just make sure they're even. I don't want the bottom piece to be not lined up properly and end up being too short. So again, we're going to use these pieces, so we're going to hang on to them. So they are all the pieces of the cardstock. We've got the 1 1/4 for the middle, the 2, it's 1 1/4 by 4. We've got 1 by 3 1/2, and we've got 3/4 by 3, which will go across. So we'll pop those off to one side for now. And then we're going to cut the designer series paper. Now, you have to be very careful with that, because obviously you want the design to flow across, and you need to cut them in the order that you need them going across the card. And because we're cutting it almost from right across to left, we're going to cut 5/8 of an inch, so that's just a little bit smaller. So you're going to cut that one first, 5/8, which goes on the first 3/4, and then we're going to cut 7/8, which goes on the inch, and then we're going to cut 1 1/8 which is the piece that will end up being in the middle. And then we're going to come back down in size, and we're going to cut the next piece just at 7/8. So I'm lining these up on this side of the paper trimmer. That's one of the great things about a Stampin' Up! Paper trimmer, is that it has measurements here for short pieces, and it puts all the support of what you're cutting it from on this side. And last but not least, we need a one that is 5/8 for the far left hand side. Whoops. And this is spare. So let me pop the paper trimmer out of the way, and then I can bring in all the pieces and you can see how they fit. So now you can see the design follows across, and then they're going to go onto their corresponding pieces of cardstock. However, these need to trim down to match the size, because these were all cut at the tallest height. So what we need to do is leave the middle one fine, and then this one needs to go down by 1/2 inch. But you can't just cut 1/2 inch off, otherwise your picture flow won't go. So because we need 1/2 inch, we need to cut 1/4 inch off the top and 1/4 inch off the bottom. So I'm going to line them up, and I'm going to line it up at the 1/4 inch. So we're going to cut 1/4 inch off the bottom and 1/4 inch off the top, and that will bring us down by the 1/2 inch. And then the skinny little pieces, they need to be 1/2 inch smaller. So we're going to put them together, and we're going to cut 1/2 inch off one side and turn them round and cut 1/2 inch off the other side. So 1/2 inch off the top and bottom. So we'll get rid of all these little scraps of bits we didn't need. Put the paper cutter away. So now when you line up your pattern, it's going to match the sizes that you need, and you've cut them down accordingly so they'll still match across. And they've only got the 1/8 inch difference around the side, so it's really a tight little squeeze. But you can see that the pattern, when you scrunch them together, is still going to line up. It's the tops and the bottoms that have got a little bit less. So let's go ahead and attach these to their corresponding white layer. So bearing in mind it's only the teeny tiniest amount that's layered around it. So we'll pop this one into place. Oh, this one is a really tight little squeeze. I don't even know if it's got 1/4 inch. Difference. You know what, I don't think it's got enough of it, so I'm just going to trim literally a hair's breadth. Sometimes it just matters where it falls in the paper trimmer, so I'm just going to cut it so it's got enough of a difference. And this one, I can see there is enough. So pop that one quickly onto its layer. And then before I start gluing it down, this one is fine. It's just got that little hair's breadth of white surrounding it, so it highlights it when it goes onto the Night of Navy cardstock. And make sure this one has got enough of a difference, which it does. There we go. And now what we need to do is stick them onto the Night of Navy cardstock. So I'm actually going to line this up on the grid paper. There is a line up the middle, and I'm going to make sure that it is equal distance on either side of that grid line, equal number of the little squares, and then that helps line this up. So if I pop this into the middle, I can eyeball that it's equal on the top and the bottom, and then I can see that it's equal on the grid paper. I'm just going to put the glue onto the other pieces, and the trick is not to put them down until you've determined that the distance between them all is more or less the same. So if I pop this one over here, I can see that this one is going to line up with its pieces. And you see here it's got a little piece that's not quite small enough. So I'm just going to quickly slip that up. Cut a smidge off so you've got enough of the white peeking out from underneath. And then that is going to go on there, and the pattern is going to flow. And the same on the other side. I'm just going to try and put that equal between the top and the bottom, and the same sort of 1/8 inch off to one side. And then we can see this roof line and the grass is all lining up more or less evenly. So there, that's the background of the piece. What I did do was, using the scraps, remember I mentioned we had these scraps, I went ahead and using the dies, I cut out one of the stars using the dies that we had. And then I'm going to bring in one little dimensional, which will just nicely pop onto the back of there if I use the small dimensionals, and stick it in the top corner. Oops. Just like that. And then I'm going to give it a little flick with the wink of Stella, just so it's got a little bit of starry blinginess in the sky. And then last but not least, we're going to make the greeting. So what I used was, out of the Berry Christmas, this nice long and skinny Christmas greeting. And I'm just going to use the Night of Navy cardstock, Night of Navy ink to match the cardstock. So I'm just going to pop it on there, quick and easy. And then just trim it with my scissors, with my snips. And then I'm going to give it the banner end by cutting up the middle, and then from the edge to where that cut mark is, just try and make it equal, and then up the middle and up the cut to the cut line. And then the little pieces of white that we snipped off, I'm going to do exactly the same with that, because it should just fit nicely and give it like a two-dimensional look. So snip it on both sides equally, up the middle, and then from the point up to where that cut mark was, and then literally just cut it in half. So let me get rid of all these little scraplets. And then on the back of here, just going to put a little bit of adhesive. And match those points up. And then nobody's any the wiser that it's actually only that much on the back side. And then what we need to do is grab some dimensionals, which I had set aside, but they seem to have deserted me, so we'll bring in, the little ones that I had, that I used to attach the star with. And just, as long as we put 3 on, that should support it just enough. And pop that in the middle. So there you are. And last but not least is to attach the whole card to the crumb cake base that we had from earlier. Just need to make sure it's got a nice little even border around. And that's it, that's the card. This is actually, they flowed on from each other. If you look, this card leads on to this card. I don't know if you could get 3 out of one piece of 12 by 12, but you could probably do it if you made them slightly skinnier. So that's it, panoramic card. Like I say, there are quite a few 8s, so I will put the measurements in the bottom just to give you help and remind you to cut it from the top and the bottom, not just slice half an inch off. It needs to literally be 1/4 and 1/4 and 1/2 and 1/2. But there you have it. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe to my channel. I'm doing quite a bit on my Facebook channel, which is also listed in the description box below. I like likes, I like shares, anything that helps keep me up there on the algorithm so I can keep bringing videos like this to you. And last but not least, thanks so much for watching.